And if you would, open your books to page 221, second page of the chapter Many Meetings, which is the first chapter of book 2, not book 2, Two Towers, but book 2 in Fellowship of the Ring. Frodo wakes up in Rivendell, and Gandalf is by his side, and he starts asking a lot of questions. Gandalf answers some, and they continue talking. And Gandalf tells him right in the middle of 220, "You will soon hear all you wish to know. We shall have a council as soon as you are well enough. At the moment, I will only say I was held captive." And Frodo's kind of astounded by that. And Gandalf replies, "Yes, I, Gandalf the Grey. There are many powers in the world, for good or for evil. Some are greater than I am. Against some I have not yet been measured. But my time is coming." In other words, Gandalf is telling Frodo that he will be measured by what he has yet to do. That he has not yet done the greatest things he will do in Middle-earth. "The Morgul Lord and his black riders have come forth. War is preparing. The Morgul Lord, captain of the Nine, the Witch King of Angmar." Okay? And when Gandalf says, "There are some that are greater than I am," he might be talking about the Witch King of Angmar. Okay? He might be talking about Sauron. He might be talking about Saruman. It's not clear at this point who exactly he is addressing there. And so Frodo says, "Oh, so you knew of the riders?" "Of course I knew of them. You knew of them also." Okay? "The Black Riders are the ring wraiths, the 9 servants of the Lord. I did not know they had arisen again," etc. And then they go on, they talk about Strider and such. And then Frodo makes a comment about Barlam and Butterbur. He says, "I didn't know any of the big people," he's talking about Strider, "were like that. I thought, well, that they were just big and rather stupid, kind and stupid like Butterbur, or stupid and wicked like Bill Ferny. But then we don't know much about men in the Shire, except perhaps the Breelanders." So Frodo begins by saying, "I thought all the big people were big and dumb." And then he tells us at the end of that little passage, what has his experience been with the big people?
Not very much. Just the Breelanders, if that.
Okay. If that. So what is his basis for saying that he thought the big people were just big and rather stupid?
Just stories he heard, or just like whatever he
Rumors.
think about.
Okay, so no personal experience.
Probably not. That's what he's saying.
So in our real world, if we have opinions about people that we haven't had any experience of, what do we call the basis for those opinions?
Stereotypes.
Stereotypes, prejudice. Okay? This is an aspect of kind of Frodo's growing up, Frodo's maturing. His eyes are being opened to the world in a way, you got a paper behind you, in a way that he's never seen before. And that's why Gandalf then says, "You don't know much even about them if you think old Bartleman is stupid." Little gentle reproving. He is wise enough on his own ground. He thinks less than he talks. That's an important trait. Okay? He thinks less than he talks and slower. Yet he can see through a brick wall in time, as they say in Brady. In other words, he's so busy his mouth is going 100 miles an hour. But there are few left in Middle-earth like Aragorn, son of Arathorn. The race of the kings from over the sea is nearly at an end. It may be that this War of the Ring will be their last adventure. Do you mean Strider is one of the people of the Old Kingdom? Duh. And not only one of the people of the Old Kingdom, because Frodo says, "I thought he was only a ranger." Notice how often Frodo, in the first half let's say, of the entire long novel. Frodo uses words like only and just, okay, where he's singling people down to one particular quality. Only a ranger? My dear Frodo, that is just what the Rangers are. The last remnant in the north of the great people, the men of the West. They have helped me before. And then he goes on and they keep talking, okay? Talk about Frodo's wound and stuff. And Frodo asks, what would they have done to me? What were the riders trying to do? They tried to pierce your heart with a Morgul knife. If they had succeeded, you would have become like they are, only weaker. You'd have been totally under their command and such. Okay? Frodo, thank goodness I did not realize the horrible danger. I was mortally afraid, of course, but if I had known more, I should not have dared even to move. It is a marvel that I escaped. A marvel. What is a marvel? What is something that is marvelous?
A miracle, something incredulous.
It's a miracle.
Ordinary.
Okay? It is totally out of the ordinary. It is incomprehensible. It is inexplicable. Frodo is saying, how in the world did I survive? Yes, fortune or fate have helped you. Okay? And they go on, they keep talking. And so Frodo asks, is Rivendell safe? And Gandalf says, yeah, for a time. The elves may fear the Dark Lord, and they may fly before him, but never again will they listen to him or serve him. They did once before. Okay? The reason I have these dates up here, it's in roughly the year 1600 of the second age of the world that the One Ring was forged. Okay. Elrond is already alive. Gandalf is already in Middle-earth at that point, I believe. Okay. The second age goes until the year 3441. So take this from this and you get 1,841 years. Where we are in the third age is the year 3018. Add those together, and the ring has been in existence for 4,859 years. Elrond is older than that. Okay? Galadriel is much older than that. A few others are a bit older than that. So this gives you an idea of how long the elves lived, because even when we get Elrond's description in just a moment, he appeared young until you look into his eyes. Okay? And they keep talking. And Gandalf says, for those who have, they do not fear the ring wraiths. Why? For those who have dwelt in the blessed realm live at once in both worlds. That is, they live somehow, simultaneously, in both the blessed realm and here. That doesn't mean that there's some shadow Glorfindel walking around in the streets of Valinor. Okay? Probably what Gandalf means here is the blessed realm is not a strictly geographical location. It's almost like more it's a state of mind. Or it is another level or layer of reality that we, not having dwelt in the blessed realm, can see. They live at once in both worlds and against both the seen and the unseen. They have great power. The seen is our realm. The unseen is the blessed realm. Frodo, I thought I saw a white figure that shone and did not grow dim like the others. Was that Glorfindel? Yes, you saw him for a moment as he is upon the other side. That is, you saw him as he appears, so to speak, in the unseen world. One of the mighty of the firstborn. He is an elf lord of a house of princes. And then Gandalf goes on and talks about a power in Rivendell to withstand Mordor for a while. And in fact, there are other powers still. He even says there's a kind of power in the Shire. What kind of power in the Shire? Okay. Think about that as the semester goes on. Right? So we go on. Frodo meets Sam, runs into Pippin. Okay? Pippin foolishly, page 226, calls Frodo Lord of the Rings. Gandalf says, shut up. There's only one Lord of the Rings, and it's not wise to mention his name here. Okay? And then Frodo sees Glorfindel, and we get the description of Glorfindel, tall and straight, hair of shining gold, face fair and young and fearless and full of joy. He's at least this old too. Okay? Eyes bright, etc. And then we get the description of Elrond. The face of Elrond was ageless, neither old nor young. How can you be neither old nor young? Where's the middle point? Though in it was written the memory of many things, both glad and sorrowful. Hair was dark as the shadows of twilight. In other words, it's not silver, it's not gray. And upon it was set a circlet of silver. His eyes were gray as a clear evening, and in them was a light like the light of stars. Venerable he seemed as a king crowned with many winters, and yet hale as a tried warrior in the fullness of his strength. Okay? We get a description of other people at the table. We see Arwen for the first time. She's not decked out in armor with a sword, and all that kind of nonsense. We meet Glowin from The Hobbit. Okay? And a few others. I'm going to skip a bunch. Frodo finally sees Bilbo. And we go to Chapter 2, the Council of Elrond. As Frodo goes in, and they're sitting around this table, and we see a bunch of folks on the top of page 240, which is the second page of the chapter. We get descriptions of these various people. There's a younger dwarf at Glowin's side, his son Gimli. Beside Glorfindel, there's other counselors. With him was Galdor, an elf from the Grey Havens. There's also a strange elf clad in green and brown named Legolas. Okay? There's a tall man with a fair and noble face, dark-haired, gray-eyed. Okay? So we start to hear conversation. The dwarves speak first. And Elrond says, after Glowin and Gimli speak, "You have done well to come. You will hear today all that you need in order to understand the purposes of the enemy. There is naught that you can do other than to resist, with hope or without it. You can resist the entreaties of Sauron, and you can do so having hope that your resistance will prove fruitful, or you can do it knowing that ultimately you will lose. But you do not stand alone. You will learn that your trouble is but part of the trouble of the Western world, the ring. What shall we do with the ring, the least of rings?" And then he makes an interesting statement. "That is the purpose for which you are called hither. Called, I say, though I have not called you to me, strangers from distant lands. You have come and are here met in this very nick of time by chance, as it may seem." Notice how he qualifies chance. It may seem or appear to be chance. Define chance. Random happenstance. So why does he then say, as it may seem? Because there is no chance. Just as Frodo was meant to have the ring, and was meant by a power other than the ring's creators, they were all meant to be there. Read Boethius. By chance as it may seem, yet it is not so. Believe, rather, that it is so ordered. The other day I put up on the board, I think I put up on the board, something about God and us down here and how our actions work in synergy, okay? According to Boethius, how many of you have read the Boethius material? Anybody? Okay, that's what I expected. According to, or maybe you're not supposed to have read it yet. According to Boethius, in his Consolation of Philosophy, we go about our lives down on this level. And we make our decisions as best we can, stumbling through the dark, as it were. Meanwhile, God is active up here. Okay? And what Boethius essentially says is that our actions work in tandem with God's. Not because God is pulling the strings on us like we're little marionettes. Okay? But here's why. This is the world of time. If you want, you can draw it as a circle. Call it the universe if you want. Where do we act? We're obviously in here. So humanity acts within the world of time, the realm of time. Nothing we do is outside of time. Where is God? God's out here, according to Boethius and most Christian theology. He's not included inside time. Okay? And yet, how do we experience time? One moment, we say, at a time. Okay? We experience time linearly. How does God experience time?
He doesn't.
He doesn't. For God, all of this is what? Now. Now. What's called the eternal present. There is no past, and there is no future for God. There's just now. And so everything that exists out here in God's eyes is now. So when, for example, St. Paul writes that Christ was crucified or Christ was slain before the foundations of the world, what does that mean? It means in God's perspective, creation, fall, incarnation, crucifixion, resurrection, second coming, redemption, judgment, it's all now. Blows our minds. Why? Because we can't really grasp that. Because we don't experience time that way. Okay? So, if God is up here and he sees all this happening now, and we're going on and plodding on along, what Boethius says is, God doesn't make all of this happen. No. God just knows. Why? Because he sees it in a flash. Everything is now. That's why, for example, in Christian theology, the second person of the Trinity, the Son of God, is said to be eternally begotten of the Father. He is always being born, so to speak, of the Father. Okay? I know it's, That's why he says, believe rather that it is so ordered. According to Boethius, what God is doing up here is he's governing the world. You could call that ordering. And I'll add a little bit in here. According to Boethius, down here with the universe and humanity and everything, it's really not entirely as simple as that. Because it's almost like you have different layers. You have humanity down here, And then you have fortune, okay, or Fortuna, the goddess of fortune. And according to Boethius, she is a creature of God. It's her job to order things here on earth. Okay? Behind or outside her, outside earth, is fate. Okay? Fortune and fate aren't the same thing. And yet beyond all that is God. In other words, fate doesn't trump God. If Sophocles, the ancient Greek poet and playwright, if Sophocles were a Christian like Boethius, and Sophocles were writing his play Oedipus the King, he wouldn't be able to construct it the way he does. Because in Oedipus the King, in the Greek system of belief, you have fate, then the gods, then us. The gods are subject to fate. They can't overrule fate. Okay? Pretty important distinction between the ancient Greek system and the Christian system. Believe rather that it is so ordered that we who sit here and none others must now find counsel for the peril of the world. In other words, the world is in our hands. There is no Savior coming from outside. There is no, to use since I'm talking about Greek, Deus ex machina, which means God from the machine. In ancient Greek plays, sometimes, when things are really at their worst, suddenly you'd have a guy sitting up on top of the playhouse, cranking a wheel, and a god would descend from the heavens to, quote unquote, or to, so to speak, wave a wand, and everything's better. Okay? In 1930s and 40s films about cowboys and Indians, what took the place of the Deus ex machina? The cavalry would come riding over the hill and save the settlers, etc., from the dirty red engines. Okay, that's a Deus ex machina. We have a kind of Deus ex machina in here, but it's not God from the outside. When Aragorn shows up at Minas Tirith, at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, everything's falling apart, it's all going bad, and suddenly the fighters of Minas Tirith see the black corsairs of Umbar. These are essentially like pirate ships. Okay? And they're thinking, oh, great. Now we have the pirates to deal with. And then suddenly, the pennant gets unfurled, and it's not the black corsairs of Umbar. It's a flag they've not seen flown for over 1,000 years. It's the sign that the king has returned. And they're like, whoa! Talk about your Deus ex machina. I mean, that's pretty big. Okay? So, Elrond speaks about Sauron and the rings of power and their forging in the second age of the world. He speaks of Numenor and the kings of Numenor, etc. And then he pauses for a moment. He's gotten to the last alliance of elves and men. And the hosts of Gil-galad and Elendil were mustered in Arnor. I remember well, he says, the splendor of their banners. It recalled to me the glory of the elder days and the host of Beleriand. Beleriand is no longer even in existence at this time. If you have your books and you I don't even know if it's included in here. Kind of is. And you turn to the first map in the back. Beleriand would be over here. Okay? And up here. It no longer even exists. Okay? Because at the end of the first age, the world was changed. You had earlier a comment about, how you could sail from Middle Earth to Valinor, the Blessed Realm, across the seas. Well, at the end of the first age, the world is turned into a ball so that you no longer can. Right? And part of what happened then was you had the changing of the continents. I mean, Tolkien's no dummy. He brings plate tectonics into his own world before there really is a science of plate tectonics. Frodo, what? You remember? What do you mean you remember? I thought that was a long time ago. It was. My memory reaches back even to the elder days. Eärendil was my sire, his father, who was born in Gondolin. We've heard that name a few times. Because what was made in Gondolin? The swords that they got from the Barrow Wight. Okay? He was born in Gondolin before its fall. My mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Luthien. So we have Elrond, okay? Eärendil was his father, who was born in Gondolin. His mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, daughter of Luthien, who was married to Beren. Okay? So Luthien is his great-great-grandmother. This picker's old, okay? He is really, really old. I have seen 3 ages in the west of the world and many defeats. I was the herald of Gilgalad, he says. He says, I was there when Elendil cut the ring. When Isildur cut the ring from Sauron's hand. Boromir barges in. Okay. And then Elrond keeps talking. And he goes on and on and on. And finally Boromir again stands up and says, now it's my turn. I get to tell my story. And he says, don't believe that Gondor has faded. We're still pretty strong. Okay. And he talks about a dream. Top of 246. In this evil hour I have come on an errand over many dangerous leagues to Elrond. 110 days I have journeyed all alone. Okay. If you go back to the map, he's essentially saying, I have come from down here to up here. Took him 110 days. I did it all by myself. I'd like a little praise. Okay? That's almost what is implied here. I have journeyed all alone, but I do not seek allies in war. The might of Elrond is in wisdom, not in weapons. He says, I come seeking counsel. Why? For on the eve of the sudden assault, a dream came to my brother in a troubled sleep. And afterwards, a like dream came off to him again, and once to me. Okay, so why does his brother have the dream numerous times and he only has it once?
Because Faramir was the one who was going to survive him,
Could be.
or Faramir was the one who was supposed to go, but because he wasn't allowed to by death.
It's probably more likely that Faramir, depending on your pronunciation, was the one who was supposed to go. The dream came to him several times for a reason. He says, and here's what I heard in the dream. Seek for the sword that was broken. In Imlandris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken stronger than Morgul spells. There shall be shown a token that doom is near at hand. For Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling forth shall stand. He goes, we don't have a clue what this means. Help us. Obi-Wan Kenobi almost,
You're wrong.
Okay? He says, my brother wanted to come, but I thought I should do it. Okay? And Aragorn stands up. Everybody's just standing up, interrupting everybody else. And here in the house of Elrond, more shall be made clear to you, says Aragorn, standing up. And he throws his sword on the table. Here is the sword that was broken. Boromir. And who are you? What's your name? Okay, now what should he be saying? Where'd you get that sword? Okay, here's the sword that was broken. When was that sword broken? Back here in 34:11. That's when Sauron fell the first time. Right? I'm going to put those dates back up there so I keep them. So. And who are you and what have you to do with Minas Tirith? Look at the difference between Tolkien's creation here and what Peter Jackson does with it. Who comes to his defense?
Aragorn.
Gandalf.
Elrond. Elrond.
You placed Elrond Legolas.
In the Lord of the Rings film, Elrond doesn't like Aragorn. There's a lot of antagonism there. There's no antagonism whatsoever in the novel. Why? Does the novel not have enough suspense? Not have enough, interpersonal relationship problems? Idiot. He is Aragorn, son of Arathorn. He is descended through many fathers from Isildur, Elendil, son of Minas Ithil. So what does that mean? He's the future king. He is the rightful heir to the throne. Okay? Notice, but he doesn't say, he's your future king, bow before him. Okay? He's the chief of the Dunedain in the north, and few are now left of that folk. Frodo, then it's yours. Thank you. Aragorn, not so fast, little man. Gandalf, bring out the ring, Frodo. The time has come. And so Frodo stands up. Everybody kind of has to look over to see him. And he holds the ring up. Behold Isildur's bane. Boromir, the halfling. Is then the doom of Minas Tirith come at last? What did the poem say? Doom is near at hand. Okay? Aragorn corrects Boromir. The words were not the doom of Minas Tirith, but doom and great deeds are at hand. What does doom mean? It does.
Somewhere something's gonna fall.
Okay, that it can mean that. It literally doesn't. It literally means judgment. Judgment is at hand. Not in some quasi-Christian religious sense. It just means the scales are evening up in the cosmic, sense of justice.
Or you can say that it's the measuring.
Yeah.
Are at hand.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Same as Gandalf just a little while ago that he was getting measured and tested.
Exactly.
You could also say it's the testing of man.
For the sword that was broken is the sword of Elendil that broke beneath him when he fell. It has been treasured by his heirs when all other heirlooms are lost. Why? Because it was spoken of old among us that it should be made again when the ring, Isildur's bane, was found. Okay, so we have the ring. Here's the broken sword. Prophecy said when the ring is found, the sword gets remade. You've seen the word sword that you have sought. What would you ask? Do you wish for the house of Elendil to return to the land of Gondor? What's he really asking? Do you want the king to return? Okay. Boromir is the son of the steward of Gondor. The stewards of Gondor have reigned for over 1,000 years. Do you want the kingship to return? In other words, are you willing to give up your place of authority? Listen to Boromir's reply. I was not sent to beg any boon, but to seek only the meaning of a riddle. We're hard pressed. The sword of Elendil would be a help beyond our hope, if such a thing could indeed return out of the shadows of the past. Why does he call it the shadows of the past?
Because he dimly remembered stories and tales.
Dimly remembered stories and tales. The sword that was broken, I mean, that's like a fairy tale. That's like a myth, a legend out of the past. It's not even recent memory, okay? You know, we could talk about the founding of the United States, a somewhat recent memory. We're talking Excalibur coming back. And I don't mean just, some guy finding in some river in England a sword hilt that has survived and the rest of the sword is rusted away. I mean somebody discovering perfect shape Excalibur.
Still embedded in the stone.
Yeah, still embedded in the stone. And he looks at Aragorn and there's doubt in his eyes. And Bilbo stands up, recites the little poem. And finally Aragorn says, for my part, I forgive your doubt. He looks at Boromir. I forgive your doubt. Little do I resemble the figures of Elendil and Isildur as they stand carven in their majesty in the halls of Denethor. I am but the heir of Isildur, not Isildur himself. He is saying here, a lot of generations have passed between Isildur and me. I am a very, very, very small particle, as it were, of Isildur. I have had a hard life and a long. The leagues that lie between here and Gondor are a small part in the count of my journeys. Okay, what did Boromir say? I traveled 110 days to get all the way from there to here, and I did it all by my lonesome. Aragorn, yeah, that's nothing, kid. He goes on and says, I've been into the far countries of Rhûn and Harad. Look where they are on the map. Rhûn is almost off the map. Okay? But he says, my home, it's in the north. And he talks about what he and the other rangers have been doing for all these years. He says, Boromir, if Gondor's been stalwart, we have not been any less. You know little of the lands beyond your bounds. Peace and freedom, do you say? The north would have known them little but for us. Fear would have destroyed them. When dark things come from the houseless hills or creep from sunless woods, they flee from us. Okay? Boromir has kind of implied, we've been the bastion of strength against Mordor. And what thanks have we gotten? Aragorn. And yet less thanks have we than you. Travelers scowl at us. Countrymen give us scornful names. Strider am I to one fat man who lives within a day's march of foes that would freeze his heart, or lay his little town in ruin if he were not guarded ceaselessly. He's talking about Butterbur and Bree. Yet we would not have it otherwise. What does he mean by that? We would not have it otherwise.
He doesn't want people to know the danger they're in. That's what he's working against.
Bingo. He would rather all the fat, dumb, and happy people in the north would stay fat, dumb, and happy and not be aware of the evil that lurks outside.
I was just going to say, that's a very military mindset. A lot of soldiers would rather than people be at home, content, and happy, and not have to face the horrors they do every day.
Exactly.
Just kind of
he's
back to his service.
He's a sentinel. He is standing guard. If simple folk are free from care and fear, simple they will be. And we must be secret to keep them so. It is better, Aragorn is saying, that they stay simple. He doesn't mean retarded. He doesn't mean unintelligent. What does he mean? Innocent. It's better that they stay innocent than that their eyes are open to the horrors and the evils and the foulness of the world. That has been the task of my kindred. But now the world is changing again. A new hour comes. Isildur's bane is found. Battle is at hand. The sword shall be reforged. I, notice, will come to Minas Tirith. Will, not shall. Will means I choose to come to Minas Tirith. Boromir. You say Isildur's bane is bound. Oh, I've seen the little ring. Where's the proof? Prove it to me. Okay. Elrond says, it'll come. And then Bilbo gets to tell his tale. Okay. Galdor says, it's still not quite 100% proof. So they keep talking. And Gandalf and Aragorn talk about finding Gollum. And then Gandalf starts to talk about the rings, all of them. Okay. And Gandalf tells about how he went to Minas Tirith and looked in the library, the archives, and found a scroll written by Isildur, and that Isildur tells what he read on the ring when he pulled it from Sauron's finger. Okay. And on page 254, after Gandalf tells all this stuff, he says, and if that is not proof enough, Galdor, there is the other test that I spoke of. Upon this very ring, which you have here seen held aloft, round and unadorned, the letters that Isildur reported may still be read if one has the strength of will to set the golden thing in the fire a while. That I have done, and this I have read. Ashnaz Gdurbatulek, Ashnaz Gimbatul, Ashnaz Krakatulek, Agburzum Ishi Krimpatul. And when he says that, the lights dim and the candles, and everybody goes, whoo. And Elrond, rather angered, never before has any voice dared to utter words of that tongue in Imlandris Gandalf the Grey. And Gandalf, and let us hope none ever shall again. In other words, you might want to learn the language. Because if we don't stop Sauron, everybody's going to be speaking German, is essentially what it means. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. Proof! This is it. And then they go on, and Gandalf talks a little bit more about Gollum. And then Legolas has to say, oops, he escaped. Okay? And so then Gandalf goes on. And he talks about being captured by Saruman. On page 259, Gandalf is talking with Saruman. They're in Orthanc, the Tower of Isengard. And Saruman tells Gandalf, for I am Saruman the Wise, Saruman Ringmaker, Saruman of many colors. Gandalf says, I looked then and saw that his robes, which had seemed white, were not so, but were woven of all colors. And if he moved, they shimmered and changed hue, so that the eye was bewildered. Saruman wants it so that when you look at him, it's almost like you're seeing a mirage. Gandalf, I liked white better. What is white? Keep going.
Untainted.
Keep going. Taint has, as part of its original word, tint. White is all the colors. Okay?
but no distinction between any.
You take a prism, you shine a white light through it, and what does it do? Red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, violet. Okay? You see the spectrum. In other words, how do you get the colors?
You break white.
You break white. White. It serves as a beginning. White cloth may be dyed. The white page can be overwritten, and the white light can be broken. In which case it is no longer white, Gandalf says. And he that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. Now that's a very profound statement when you think about it. He that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. A lot of English courses, literature courses, you'll essentially be asked to break the thing you are reading. To break it up into all its little constituent elements. To break it up into its structure. Well, what kind of poem is it? What kind of meter does it have? What kind of stanza form does it? Okay. Rather than appreciating it in its whole form. Tolkien might be getting at here when in 1936 he delivered his famous essay, Beowulf, the Monsters and the Critics. What he does is he takes to task all the previous critics of Beowulf, the epic Old English poem, for looking at Beowulf and seemingly ripping it apart to try to use Beowulf to determine what they could of ancient Anglo-Saxon society or ancient Germanic society. What does Beowulf tell us about the religion of the ancient Germans? What does Beowulf tell us about the social customs? What does Beowulf tell us about mythology? What does Beowulf tell us about blah, 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 blah? Rather than, what is Beowulf? What does the poem mean? And because all previous critics before Tolkien said, the monsters, they're silly, they're peripheral, they're unimportant. Tolkien said, wrong. That's why you have Beowulf fight Grendel. And the whole beginning of the poem leads up to his fighting Grendel. And then he has to fight Grendel's mother. And then he goes on and he fights a dragon. The three central events of the poem are all about monsters. Tolkien wanted to know why. The Anglo-Saxons didn't necessarily literally believe that there were monsters. So what are they doing? Why are they writing about this? Okay? He that would break a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. Saruman has broken white to find out what it is. And Gandalf says, well, that's not very smart, because what is white? It is! It is white. You take any one of the colors away from white, and what do you have? Unwhite. Okay? When you see red, you are filtering out all the other colors. Or the thing that is red has filtered out all the other colors. So what you are seeing now is only that spectrum of light. Obviously, then it changes it, right?
It's like instead of looking at a painting, you look at the fibers of the painting.
Yep. Or you just say, oh, look, paint.
You can't see what it really is.
If you read the essay on fairy stories, what Tolkien says in there about recovery, seeing things as we were meant to see them. That is, seeing things as they really are. You walk into this room twice a week, or you walk into other classrooms, I'll bet you come in, you sit down, you pull your books out, etc., and you look around and you see things, but you don't really see them. For example, you see walls. But do you see individual concrete block with mortar and concrete block with little dimples that has a texture? Do you look at a ceiling and see ceiling tiles and by the vents, black dust? Okay. That's what Tolkien means. Seeing, really seeing really observing. Saruman doesn't like Gandalf's tone. Don't speak to me as to one of the fools that you take for friends. But Saruman's not there merely to belittle Gandalf. He wants to persuade him. Listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper. I said we, for we it may be, if you will join with me. A new power is rising. Against it, the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. In other words, there is no hope to defeat Sauron. There is no hope left in elves or dying Numenor. This then is one choice before you. We can join with it. It would be wise, Gandalf. There is hope that way, and its victory is at hand. As the power grows, its proved friends will grow. Why do people, friends, suck up, for example, to presidential candidates? Why do people give, those who are able to, hundreds of thousands of dollars? Well, what do presidents get to do once they're inaugurated and everything?
Make all the decisions.
They make decisions. They name ambassadors. You think people get named ambassador because of all the knowledge and information and wisdom they have about the countries they get named ambassador to? No! They get named ambassadors because they were big financial campaign donors or old friends. Happens all the time. He says, and the wise such as you and I with patience may at last come to direct its courses, to control it. We can bide our time, we can keep our thoughts in our hearts, deploring maybe evils done by the way, but approving the high and ultimate purpose, knowledge, rule, order. What is Saruman really saying?
I want to rule.
I want to rule, okay, what else?
I want power.
Okay, he wants power. What else?
He wants everything to be in its place.
He wants everything to be in its place. He is saying, if we join with Sauron, what might we ultimately be able to do?
Take over,
Structure the world as we want it to be.
Okay.
control.
He is saying, we might be able to sway Sauron in our direction. Okay? This is a policy of what's called constructive engagement. And what it means, this is involved in politics, in foreign international relations. What it means is we align ourselves maybe with a power, a government, that we don't really like what it does to its own people, let's say. But we align ourselves with it in the hope that we can persuade it to change its behavior. Back until about 2006 or so, from the late 1980s at least, through 2006, Congress every year had to vote on a particular bill. And that bill was regarding what's called most favored nation trading status. Okay? There were certain nations that we granted MFN to, most favored nation trading status, which meant certain obstacles would not be in our way to trade with them. Certain tariffs, excises, taxes, things like that. Okay? Most nations that wanted most favored nation trading status, they got it without really any problem. But there was always one biggie that every year when it came up for a vote, there was a big fight in Congress over. China. Why? Well, one, China's communist. Two, China doesn't treat its people very well. Or it didn't, at least as much in the late 80s and through the 90s. Okay? You have slave trade. A lot of that stuff you buy today says made in China. It's made in prisons. Okay? And so you had a large contingent of Congress saying, this isn't good, this isn't nice, they're not humanitarian, they're not good people, we should block most favored nation trading status. And then there'd be another group of Congress that says, yes, 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 that's all true. But if we completely break trade with China, we have no influence whatsoever. So, if we grant them most favored nation trading status, then we have an influence. Then we can constructively engage with them and attempt to get them to see things our way. Attempt. Never worked. Okay. How free is China? It's still not. Okay? You know, and if you've noticed, you know, I've got all this Apple stuff. How much does someone get paid in China who builds one of these? About $17 a day for a 12-hour shift. There's a reason why Apple cannot make its products in the United States.
Well, it could, but it'd have to raise all the prices. It'd be like,
Well, no, there's actually another reason why. We don't have the skilled workforce in terms of sheer numbers. I mean, we've got 310 million total. That includes babies and, you know. How many people are in China?
1.2 billion.
Yeah, like 1.2 or 1.6 billion. Okay? Their workforce outnumbers ours by a huge number. Saruman is saying, let's ally ourselves with Sauron and we can turn him. Gandalf. I've heard this kind of nonsense before. Don't tell me this is what you really want to do. He said, no, I understand. I see what you're a smart man, Gandalf, and why not? Why not? The ruling ring. What if we could command that? Then the power would pass to us. Yeah. Yeah, you saw through my ruse, Gandalf. That's why I brought you here. You know where it is, don't you? Sure, man, only one hand can wield the ring. You know, we can't fit both of our fingers and go like Siamese ring bearers, you know. He says, and I would not give it away. Nay, I would not even give news of it to you now that I know your mind. You were head of the council, but you have amassed yourself at last. The council of what?
Wizards.
The council of, no, the white council, meaning the council of the wise. The wizards are separate. I mean, the wizards are members, at least Gandalf and Saruman, we don't know about Radagast the Brown, are members of the White Council. He said, you were. In other words, just wait till I get back to Galadriel, man. You're going to be outed on the council very quickly. So, he gets captured. Notice what does not happen.
There's no wizard battle.
Yeah, we don't have Yoda and Count Dooku, you know, battle it out here with their staffs and everything. Complete and utter nonsense.
But it is very visually.
Yeah, it's very visually appealing, like cotton candy, you know. And as cotton candy is to teeth, that visually appealing image is to the Lord of the Rings. It rots and decays it, okay? So, Gandalf talks about, I made my way back. And then there's silence. Because after all this talk, what good has it done? Okay, we know the history of the ring. We know Frodo has the ring. Now what? And Aragorn says, you know, I forgot about Tom Bombadil. Page 265. If indeed this is still the same that walked the woods and hills long ago, and even then was older than the old. What does he mean, even then? He means, when I was a boy, man, this guy was older than dirt. Literally. Gandalf, he wouldn't have come if we'd summoned him to the council. Arister asked, well, can't we at least try? I mean, he has power over the ring. Gandalf, no, I should not put it so. Say rather that the ring has no power over him. He is his own master. Well, think about that for a moment. How can you be your own master?
By completely knowing who you are yourself.
Okay, ageless alone, nameless alone. How else? To be your own master means what?
Nobody else is your master?
Yes. Means something else too. To be completely independent. Is anyone completely independent?
No.
So who can be?
God, pretty much.
What is Moses here when he says, who shall I say sent me? When I go back to the Israelites. I need a name. I am. What does I am mean? I exist. It's the only one that can say, I am. All of us can't really say that. That is, we cannot say, I exist because I wish to exist. Because I am. All of us are dependent. What does that literally mean?
You require something.
You rely on someone.
We are pendant, like a pendant does what? It hangs from something else. Okay? The D here means out of. We hang from something else. We have our being from something else. God doesn't. Maybe Tom Bombadil doesn't. I don't know. He is his own master. He can't alter the ring itself, nor break its power over others. And now he's drawn into this little land. Okay, so why can't we send the ring to him? Gandalf said, well, he might take it. He wouldn't want it. But he'd lose it. Because what does he do all day long? He hops and skips through the wood, sings to the flowers and trees, and la 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 la. And he'd have the ring and and Old Man Willow would get it before you know it. And you got to know there's some kind of, Morse code going on between Old Man Willow and, the dark, let's say. Glorfindel then says, and decides to send the ring away would only do what?
Delay.
It would only be a delay. It would only be a delay. It would only postpone the day. He says no, and in the end, even Bombadil would fall. Galdor, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Isn't there someone here who has the strength to hold the ring? Elrond, not me. Okay, it's Glorfindel, okay. So if the ring cannot be kept from Sauron ever by strength, there's only two options. To send it over the sea or to destroy it. Now what does he mean to send it over the sea?
To send it where Sauron cannot ever possibly get it.
To send it to Valinor. To send it to Manwë and the gods. And let them put it in their, Social Security lockbox, so to speak. Okay? Elrond, but Gandalf said, we can't destroy it by any craft that we possess. And they who dwell beyond the sea would not receive it. Why? It's not their problem. It's our problem. The gods didn't make it. Why should they have to deal with it? In other words, there will be no Deus Ex Machina in this book. Glorfindel, okay, then let's throw it into the ocean. Yeah, that's an idea. Take it out to the Laurentian abyss and do like we did with Megatron. Drop it into the ocean, Gandalf, no, it wouldn't be safe forever there either. There are things in the waters, and lands and seas may change. In other words, and eventually what might happen to the ring?
And wash back up on
It gets washed up onto the store like the little Jumanji, game. Just for somebody to go, ooh, look, shiny. Precious. Gandalf, we should seek a final end of this menace, even if we do not hope to make one. We should try, even if we don't have any hope of succeeding. That is, even if we know we're going to fail, we should try. Okay? Boromir just doesn't understand. Why can't we use it? He asks. Wielding it, the free lords of the free may surely defeat the enemy. The men of Gondor are valiant. Let the ring be your weapon. Take it. Go forth to victory. All right. Sorry, can't. Why? Because we know what it will do. Look what happened to Saruman. Come on. Boromir, clean out your ears.
Look what happened to Isildur.
Yeah, look what happened to Isildur. He didn't get rid of it.
He died.
Elrond, I fear to take the ring to hide it. I will not take the ring to wield it. Gandalf, nor I. Boromir, I will. Okay. They keep going on. And finally, Glorfindel is talking. And then Aristor says, what strength have we, page 269, for the finding of the fire in which it was made? That's the path of despair. Folly, I would say, if the long wisdom of Elrond did not forbid me. Gandalf, despair or folly? Well, what does despair mean? It is not despair, for despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. In other words, you have to know 100% certainty how this story ends. He says, we do not.
Well, even if you did, despair is a sense of defeat. You don't have to accept despair even if you know how it's going to end.
No, but Gandalf says, despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. That is, if we see the end beyond all doubt, and that end is Sauron wins, then that leads to despair. If Sauron ultimately wins, then why even take another breath? I mean, think about this. If Sauron wins, the philosophy of nihilism is right. And if nihilism is right, just end it now. If there is ultimately no meaning, no good, no truth, no beauty, why go on? Is Gandalf's point. Okay? Listen to what he says. It is wisdom to recognize necessity. That is, sometimes we are forced to do things that we don't want to do, but we have to do them. When all other courses have been weighed, though as folly it may appear to those who cling to false hope. That is, it might look foolish to those who think, oh, it'll be better. You know, like when a parent tells a child, it's okay, it'll be better. Or when a babysitter or a school tells a child on the morning of September 11th, 2011, it's okay, your parents will be home. And they never come home. That's foolish. That's folly. Let folly be our cloak. Why? Because there is a chance. It might be small. It might be minuscule. But there is a chance of succeeding. Because what will Sauron expect?
That they use
Oh man, somebody's going to claim it. I know, he knows what he put in this baby. And it's going to be going, come on, use me, Gandalf. You could be not only Gandalf the White, you could be Gandalf the Great. Okay?
Gandalf the all-powerful.
Gandalf the all-powerful, yeah, I mean super Gandalf. Okay? So, Elrond finishes this little passage. Such is oft the course of deeds that move the wheels of the world. Small hands do them because they must, while the eyes of the great are elsewhere. Is that his little nudge to Frodo? Small hands, get it? You're a midget. You got little hands. Because Bilbo goes, oh, okay, I'll do it. You know, puts his teeth back in. Because he's old. He's really old at this point. Okay?
150.
No, he's not 150. He's
100, it's been
See, he's going to end up finally passing the old Took. It's been 17 years, so he's 128, 129, somewhere right around there. And so there's silence, because everybody realizes Bilbo can't take it. Finally, Frodo goes, fine. I'll take it. I don't know the way. Somebody's going to have to give me a map. And Elrond says, if I understand aright all that I have heard, I think that this task is appointed for you, Frodo. And if you don't find the way, no one will. But when he says appointed, he goes, Frodo, very good. I wanted you to do this all along. He's saying, I'm not the one choosing you. Why? You were meant to have the ring. Who of all the wise could have foreseen it? He says, but it's a heavy burden, so I'm not going to let you go off alone. So, the ring goes south. Who goes with it? Frodo, obviously. Who can't be separated from Frodo? Sam, Siamese twin. Okay. So you have Frodo and Sam. Frodo, Sam, who else? Leave Merry and Pippin aside for a moment. Gandalf first. Why? Because
Well, he has to show him the way.
this is his great. Elrond says, your fate is kind of bound up with the fate of the ring here. Aragorn. Why is Aragorn going? Because he has a cool sword. No, he's heading south anyways. He already said, I'm going to Minas Tirith. So he's going. Boromir's got to go back home.
Boromir's not letting the ring out of his sight either.
Yeah, that too. What else? Or who else? Why Legolas and Gimli?
Well, Legolas wants to go to represent the elves.
And why else? I mean, there's kind of a subtext reason too. They let Gollum escape. I mean, this is almost like penance he has to do. Gimli?
Because he's not going to get shot up by an elf.
Why else do we have Legolas and Gimli?
Also to represent all the races.
Exactly. We have the free races of Middle-earth represented. The only ones we're kind of excluding is, Gon Gon and the woodmen of outside Gondor. But they're men, so. And then we get Merry and Pippin. Why does Elrond not want to send Merry and Pippin? Well, it's a little harsh.
They have trouble taking things seriously sometimes.
They're too young, he says. And he has another reason. He wants to send them back to the Shire to prepare it. Okay? But Gandalf kind of overrules him, if anyone can overrule Elrond, saying what? Trust to friendship. Okay, notice. It's because of Gandalf that Merry and Pippin are there. It's because of Pippin that what happens to Gandalf?
Yes, out of Balrog.
He dies. Okay? So Gandalf sets into motion the very fact that Pippin is there. We're going to skip a whole bunch now. Ring goes south. They go into Moria, skipping all the stuff about the wargs and, being caught on Caradhras the Cruel, the mountain that won't let them over it. And they make their way to Moria, and Frodo overhears Aragorn tell Gandalf, beware, Gandalf the Grey, the mines of Moria, I say to you, beware, and all that. And they're out there in front of the Durin's doors, and the slimy thing from the lake captures Frodo. And notice it's Frodo, not anybody else. And they make their way into Moria. And on page 311 in the chapter Journey in the Dark, Aragorn tells everybody, don't be afraid. I've been with Gandalf in lots of places. He'll not go astray. Has Aragorn been in Moria before? Has Gandalf? Yes. Gandalf was in Moria once before. It was in Moria that he got the map that he gave to Thorin Oakenshield in The Hobbit. Okay? So they make their way, and they camp in this guard room one night, and there's a big hole in the ground, a well. And we're told Pippin is intrigued by this on page 313. Okay? Notice he doesn't just sit up against the edge and knock a skeleton into it. Because that is what? That's an accident. No. Pippin intentionally, consciously, goes over to the edge of the well, looks down in it, it's pitch black so he can't see anything, and what does he do? Why does he drop a rock? Who wouldn't? Are you honestly going to tell me that if you were in this place, you wouldn't want to go, I wonder how deep that is? I would. Fool of a took. This is a serious journey, not a hobbit walking party. Throw yourself in next time, and then you will be no further nuisance. Well, I mean, grumpy old Gandalf, that's not very nice. But what happens immediately thereafter?
The drums.
Great. Now you woke up something, because that's not a mechanical noise. So, they find the Black Book of Mazerpool. They start to read it. They read drums, 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 and finally, oh yeah, the drums. And they get attacked. Frodo gets nailed by a spear. They make their way down. They find the bridge of Khazad-dûm. Gandalf tells all the others go across. And little old frail Gandalf goes out and stands on the middle of the bridge, which looks kind of like this. And he's standing here. Okay, flaming sword. And he suddenly realizes what it was that put a counterspell on the door. A Balrog. Top of 330. A Balrog. Now I understand. What an evil fortune. And I'm already weary. He hasn't been able to recharge his wizardly, whatever you call them, batteries, from putting the spell on the door. You cannot pass, Gandalf says. The orcs freeze. I am a servant of the secret fire. Wielder of the flame of Aenor. What's the flame of Aenor? His sword. Okay? What's the secret fire? Eru Iluvatar. That's what it is. The secret fire is the secret fire that Eru has that enables him to say Ea. And Ea in Tolkien's created language means let it be. It's the word that he speaks that puts into creation these songs that have been sung by the Ainur that we talked about the other day. Okay? And the whole world comes into being. All right? That's the secret fire. That's what Melkor really, really would like. Melkor wants to be an independent creator. He wants to be like God, in other words. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Aenor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Adun. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass. Balrog jumps up. Gandalf again. You cannot pass. Aragorn thinks he's going to somehow be a help. Jumps on the bridge. Boromir after him, because he doesn't want to let Aragorn get all the glory. Gandalf lifts his staff, breaks the bridge. The Balrog sucks him down and dies. Okay? They make their way to Lothlorien. We don't have a lot of time. And in Lothlorien, notice they all have to be blindfolded. Why? Because elves don't like dwarves. Gimli's a dwarf. And Legolas is spitting nails mad. Well, I'll be hogtied if I'm going to be blindfolded. Here I am in the greatest trees in Middle-earth, and you want me, a tree elf, not to be able to see them? And Aragorn essentially said, yeah, it's how it's going to work. Okay? So they make their way to Galadriel, and Galadriel kind of gives them this piercing gaze when they each come up onto her treehouse and looks at them. And Aragorn says some things to Boromir about, the only evil that is in Lothlorien is what you bring with you. So leave it at the doorstep. And then Galadriel takes Frodo to look in her mirror. which isn't a real mirror. It's a basin of water. And Frodo and Sam look in it, and Sam sees what's going on in the Shire, and he sees some other things. He sees Frodo lying under like in a cave, doesn't understand what it means, but decides he's not going to go back, he's going to continue the journey on. Frodo looks in, and he sees a variety of things, and finally he just sees an eye. And it's like the eye's going, ding, 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 ding. It's triangulating, it's getting closer and closer. And as the eye looks at him, he gets closer and closer to the water. And Galadriel says, don't touch it. And Frodo finally looks up. And he talks with Galadriel, and he comes to understand, if the ring is destroyed, what will happen to Lothlorien? It will be destroyed too. Or, take that back, it won't be destroyed, it will just gradually fade. And it will just become another old growth forest. And there won't be any elves. So Frodo says, you are wise and powerful. Will you not take the ring? And Galadriel does her giant growing thing and says, I'll be a great queen and all this. And then she says, I passed the test. Okay? And Frodo realizes she is wearing one of the rings. One of the 3 elven rings. Okay? They leave Lothlorien, but before they do, the Lady of Lothlorien gives them gifts. What do they each receive? Okay, all of them receive a few things. What is one thing that all of them receive?
Cloaks.
Cloak? What's on the cloak?
Pen.
Okay, the little brooch that keeps it, pinned at the top. What else do they all receive? Limbus bread, which is whey bread. It's like, super powerful, high protein, really good, doesn't rot, doesn't decay.
And the synergy bars.
Yeah, synergy bars. Okay. Then what do they individually receive? What does Aragorn receive? A scabbard to put his sword in. Why?
He doesn't have one.
Okay, possibly. But this scabbard is woven with spells such that the sword that is drawn from it will what? Never break. That's kind of good to have because the last time the sword was drawn, it broke. Okay? What does Legolas get? New bow and arrows. These are like, self-returning arrows, apparently. Okay? And the bow, a person who shoots from this bow will never miss, so to speak. Okay? What does Boromir get?
Belt.
A great big solid gold belt buckle, like a WWF, I'm tough now, kind of a thing. Okay? What do Merry and Pippin get? Nothing specifically. What does Sam get? Rope. Woven by Galadriel and her ladies themselves. What does Frodo get?
The lightning of
The phial of Galadriel, which has light from the star that shone down on the mirror. Okay? What is that light from? The evening star. Erendil. What is the light of the star from? The Silmaril that Beren cut from the crown of Morgoth. Okay? That's the light that fills this phial. Finally, what does Sam get? Box of dirt. And 3 strands of her hair. Why? Because Sam's in love. Gimli. Gimli receives the 3 strands of hair. Gimli receives the hair. He's a dwarf. He asks for it, and they're all like, what? Pulling out their swords. They're going to lop his little head off. And she's like, no, why do you want this? He says, because it would be the most valuable treasure in my land. She's like, oh, Gimli. Blushes. Snip. Okay. Why do I say Gimli's in love? Later on, he's going to meet somebody, and he's going to go, well, didn't she have any messages for me? And the person says, oh, yeah. And he starts to dance a jig as soon as he finds out that wherever Gimli goes, Galadriel's thought is with them. Right? All right. We will pick up with the breaking of the fellowship. We're almost caught up.